IRS. Now, that's not a legitimate power, and I'm going to tell you why. We need to catch this, because if you allow this kind of usurpation to stand, and the longer you allow it to stand, the more difficult it is for people to roll it back. As we see here, this is an organization that is reporting on this. They have a problem with the EPA doing it, but evidently they don't have a problem with the IRS doing it. The IRS doesn't have legitimate constitutional and legal powers to do that. But here's what they appeal to. They go back to the Debt Collection Improvement Act of 1996, and they say they have authority under that. It's centralized federal collection operations under the Treasury Department, which oversees garnishment of wages or tax refunds. Now, actually, that is something that's not where the IRS got that power. The IRS has been doing that for a long time, and they don't even appeal to any ruling for that. But even if they did have a ruling, even if they had a law from Congress, it would not trump the Constitution. Look at what we're losing here. Look at the Sixth Amendment that gives us due process. There's no due process here. Look at the Eighth Amendment that says we will not be given excessive fines like $75,000 a day. That isn't excessive by anybody's standard. It also says that if there's a civil action, and that's the way that they're doing this, they're saying these are not criminal actions, so we don't have to give you a jury trial. Well, the Seventh Amendment says that we get jury trials if it's a civil action, if it's over $20, and this is way over $20. And they're saying here that under that law that they presume to have the authority, every federal agency, not just the EPA, every federal agency has the authority to conduct administrative wage garnishment, provided that the agency adopts approved rules for conducting hearings where debtors can challenge the amount of debt or repayment schedule. These hearings are not trials. They're not jury trials of your peers. This is an administrative hearing before the same agency that created the rules, before the same agency that polices the rules, that assesses the fines. They're going to listen to you. This is not a trial by your peers, where if it's an unreasonable law like this one from the EPA, the jury should nullify that law. That's why we have juries. It's to nullify those kind of laws. So they're throwing out a tradition that is enshrined in our Constitution. Where does that tradition come from? Well, it goes all the way back to the Magna Carta. We used to lead the world in liberty. Now we're leading the world in tyranny, because we can see that in the UK, they are now adopting these same tactics there, and the members of Parliament are horrified that this is happening. This is a story that was put up from the International Business Times on INFOWARS. UK MPs are horrified by the HMRC, that's their IRS, overriding the Magna Carta by raiding bank accounts. Yes, they're going to go in and just confiscate money out of the bank accounts like the IRS has been doing here for decades. And of course, this is something that goes back 800 years. And as they point out, Britain's taxman is going to be taking money directly out of bank accounts without a court order, and that breaches the 800-year-old protection of ordinary people that's inscribed in the Magna Carta. MPs said that they were horrified by these proposals, said we're talking about the ability of one organ of the state to have the unique right to go against the Magna Carta Charter, go in and seize without judicial process or review a bank account. Well, yes, that's right. And if they let this stand, it's going to be like it is here in the United States, where it isn't going to be one unique agency like the IRS. After they do that for a few years, they will extend it to all of the bureaucracies of the government. When you allow them to usurp your rights, to steal them, when they are guaranteed by our documents like the Magna Carta, by the Constitution. The Constitution didn't give us our rights. Neither did the Magna Carta. What they did was they recognized that we have those rights and that governments will not take them. This is a quote that one of the MPs in the UK mentioned. It's from Prime Minister William Pitt. Now, he was there at the time of the American Revolution. He stood with the American colonies against what the Crown was doing to the American colonies. He said this. He said, "Necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom." That was the quote that they brought up in the debate. They always tell us that it's necessary. And what they're telling us with the EPA, what they're telling them in UK is that, well, it's efficient. It's necessary that we do this because we don't want to spend too much time or too much money in these collections. There's other things that are going on with British politicians, and they're also saying that this is necessary as well. This is a story from Steve Watson. He points out that British politicians have been caught in a secret deal to allow the mass surveillance of the public. This is a done deal, he says, between the three parties, and it's going to be railroaded through. That's a quote from a prominent member of parliament. This is being exposed by the Open Rights Group. They say there is no legal basis for making internet service providers retain our data. So it's using the threat of terrorism as an excuse for getting this law passed. Now, the Prime Minister, David Cameron, says, I'll be explaining today why emergency legislation is needed to maintain powers to help keep us safe. See, it's necessary. But this group points out that the government has had since April to address the European Court of Justice ruling, but it is only now that organizations such as the Open Rights Group is threatening legal action that this has become an emergency. Now, Steve Watson also points out in the article that the UK is mirroring what the US is doing in terms of dragnet surveillance of the entire population. But of course, there's a reason for that. Not only are we leading the way now in tyranny, but we have a formal organization called the Five Eyes, and the UK is one of the key members of that organization. Just look at this story. Files on the UK's role in CIA rendition have been accidentally destroyed. Now, of course, this is to Diego Garcia. It's a UK territory, but it's an open secret that the CIA has been using that for rendition and for torture and for various other uses. When they found out about this, they tried to get information. This is a human rights group in the UK. Of course, they get the same excuse that we hear over here all the time from the IRS and other people. The dog ate it, essentially. They've lost this now. It's been destroyed because of water exposure. Now, even as that's happening, the NSA and now DARPA are moving further and further into control and manipulation through the internet. As they watch what we're doing, they're also controlling us. And of course, one of the ways that they watch and control us is through social media. We reported just last week that there was an unannounced experiment on Facebook to try to make people happier or more depressed by controlling their news feed. Now we see that there are literally dozens of military programs to control social media. This is a story by Steve Watson up on INFOWARS.com. And he says that reporters in the London Guardian revealed that DARPA is engaging in multiple programs targeting Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Kickstarter, and other popular social media sites. Now, the website that's talking about this DARPA program says that they are seeking to develop tools to support the efforts of human operators to counter misinformation or deception campaigns with truthful information. Of course, Steve Watson points out what they consider to be truthful information is merely propaganda. And let's show you how that works. Again, quoting from the study, they say, for example, a government campaign on Twitter that supports vaccinations can engage with followers who are more likely to take certain actions. For example, spreading a campaign message based on their opinions. And when anti-government messages are spread in social media, the government would want to spread counter messages to balance that effort. Hence, identify people who are more likely to spread such counter messages based on their opinions. Now, that's a quote from the people who wrote the study. They're talking about how they're going to use social media to control people that they know will be their own personal trolls. That's right. DARPA is looking for a few good trolls. And how are they doing it? They're doing it through a grant to mainly IBM and universities. They're giving $8.9 million to IBM and $9.6 million to educational institutions. Remember how Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex? Well, he also talked about how all research would be taken over by that military-industrial complex to serve the government's interest. I can think of no better example of that than this DARPA troll research that's going on. Now, a lot of people are having enough of this surveillance state. Germany has just ejected the CIA station chief at the U.S. Embassy in Berlin. They've asked him to leave the country. The official spokesman said the representative of the U.S. intelligence services at the Embassy of the U.S. has been requested to leave Germany. And that brings up the question, why don't we arrest the people who are spying on us? It's not against the law for the U.S. government to spy on Germany, even though Germany is their allies. But it is against the law, the FISA law that was enacted after the Frank Church Committee hearings, where they were concerned that our own government was going to use its powers of espionage against the American people. It's specifically prohibited by that. So why don't we throw them out of the government at least, if not arrest them? Now, finally in the news tonight, there's an idea that Bill Gates has conceived, an idea that he could remotely control contraceptives. This is from the MIT Technology Review. They say a contraceptive implant with remote control could be deactivated and reactivated using a wireless remote control. This would be implanted under the skin. It would dispense 30 micrograms a day of a hormone that's already used in a lot of different contraceptives, and they would put 16 years of that hormone in this device. What could possibly go wrong? Well, first of all, I don't know what the consequences would be if you got 16 years worth of contraceptive hormone all at once because there was a malfunction in the device, or it ruptured, or it was exploded in an accident. But the other question is, who's going to control this remote control contraceptive device? As we look at the Internet of Things, as we have appliances throughout our houses that are hooked into the internet that can be hacked into, isn't it possible that this device could be hacked into as well? Of course it is. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how are we turning control over our lives, even over when we're going to have children, to outside parties, when we make it available for them to turn that on? Very dangerous that you would not know when it's being turned on or by who it's being turned on. Now, of course, there's also no surprise that this will be coming from Bill Gates with his connections back to Planned Parenthood. His father was president of Planned Parenthood for a very long time. The goal, they say, is to have this on the market by 2018. Now, stay with us. Right after the break, we have the INFOWARS crew in Murrieta, California, and an interview with some La Raza members. Stay with us.
Alex Jones here to break down some exciting developments in the area of research concerning supplemental iodine. It's nothing less than phenomenal. I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. And I used some of the mainline iodine supplements and they upset my stomach and I had some issues with it. Until I discovered a product being developed by Dr. Group, who I was already interviewing as an expert on my radio show, and I began taking the product before he actually rolled it out. You now know it as Survival Shield True Nascent Iodine that your body can really absorb. Then, about a year ago, he said, listen, if you think this is powerful, I'm going to come out with rare earth, deep earth crystals that are incredibly powerful that no one else has as a source for their iodine, from between 7,000 and 12,000 feet, literally drilled out of the ground. You put it on a hot plate, and it turns into the pure gas. No one else has 99.99% pure iodine. And the results that I personally have had have been life-changing. I was over 270 pounds. And with the iodine, exercise, and better diet, I have lost now more than 50 pounds total, and I'm continuing to lose the weight. I have more energy, my libido, all this crap came out of my skin. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. This is innovating. This is trailblazing. And the best part is it helps fund INFOWARS.com, the radio show, the TV show, the whole media operation promoting true libertarian ideas. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. Take advantage of this unprecedented 30% off Super Detox Special at INFOWARSLife.com.
I'm Joe Biggs with INFOWARS.com in Murrieta, California. Now, right behind me, on both sides of the road, we have La Raza soldiers standing their little guard, waving Mexican flags back and forth. I want to go down there and talk to them and see what they have to say, hear what their views are on this matter. Let's go down there and take a look. What is your stand then on how to deal with it?
Well, you know, I don't know the answers.
I mean, just your personal opinion.
But I do know that everyone has the right to protest. That's right. You know, First Amendment, that's fine. You know, but you know, scaring children, that's not.
But thank you. So, are you guys going to take in these kids as well?
If these kids, how can we do that?
But they're going to be releasing them.
Okay, if they release them, I'll tell you right now, they can come to my house.
But I went to the pro-amnesty meeting yesterday at town hall, and the diocese said that they will be releasing them into the city. So would you take them into the home?
I would take them into my home.
Take them out?
I would take them into my home.
I don't even live here.
But see, that's a personal. You're asking me what I personally would do? Yes, I would.